Hey team, welcome back to Briggs and Co, where we are leaving average for Joe. I'm your host, Briggs Gibbons, and I am stoked for today's guest. We are diving into the world of Canadian football. Let's hear it for the show's first professional athlete. Can you hear growth in the background, folks? No, just crickets. Good, good, good. It is an absolute pleasure to welcome Justin Lawrence onto the podcast. He is a beast on the offensive line and truly just an bright, colorful, enthusiastic, and kind soul. I think you are all going to enjoy the conversation that I had with Justin. He talks about life behind the scenes of a CFL player, on and off the field, life in and out of the seasons, and his time signing with the CFL for the very first time. So without further ado, please welcome Justin Lawrence. Well, welcome, Justin. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'm super stoked to have you on. I feel like I've been trying to kind of take on more athletes, more sports driven guests, and business and entrepreneur. I'm just branching away from just the entertainment. So actually, you'll be the first athlete sports figure on the show. So I'm super stoked about that. Thank you for coming on. I think just to give a little background on who you are, what you do for listeners that may or may not know Justin Lawrence, if you could just briefly introduce yourself and what you're sort of known for right now, and then we can dive into all the good stuff.
Yeah, no, that's totally cool to be the first athlete to be on this. But my name is Justin Lawrence. I play for the Montreal Alouettes of the Canadian Football League, also known as the CFL. I'm an offensive center. I always tell football fans, basically, who don't know too much about football, I'm essentially the guy who snaps the ball back to the quarterback, and then I'm a bodyguard from there on out. So I always say, like, my part-time title is a bodyguard. For those that don't know football super well, essentially to stop people from getting to the quarterback and opens up some holes for the running back so they can look really good. So going into I just finished my 6th year in the CFL. I played 3 years with the Calgary Stampeders where I was drafted. And then I was fortunate enough my very first year in the CFL to win a Grey Cup in 2018 with the Calgary Stampeders out here in Edmonton, actually, which was really cool. And then after 21, I went out to Toronto Argonauts. I signed with them during free agency and played only one season there, but won a Grey Cup with them as well, actually out in Regina, which was really cool. And then after the 2022 season, I went to free agency again and signed with the Montreal Alouettes, and we won in 23 as well, where that game was out in Hamilton, which was cool. And now just signed an extension with Montreal, so I'm under contract through 2026, which is pretty cool. So kind of found my
Yay!
home for now.
That's sick. Congratulations.
Yeah, so it's been quite the little journey. I've been kind of everywhere. I was bouncing around for
So
a
then
while.
who's been the best fans, would you say, for CFL? Who's been the, would you say, the rowdiest, the most supportive?
It's kind of crazy because honestly, like being drafted to Calgary, like Calgary was super. Like it's a big city, but people are actually like very familiar with the Stampeders, and people are very into it there, especially when they're winning. And when I went to Calgary, they were a very successful team and been to a lot of Grey Cups. But honestly, I got out to Montreal and like the fan base was solid, but after 23, when the fan base just kind of blew up, and all of a sudden we become like kind of the hot commodity around Montreal. Like we're selling out every single game, and people are really backing us up. So I got to give it to Montreal. They've just been honestly such a great support system for us, and probably the loudest crowd you'll ever go to in the CFL, even though it's not the biggest stadium.
Ah, that's neat to hear.
Yeah.
Would you say that the language barrier being out there is something that is a struggle for you, or because there's so many people from everywhere that it's not too much directly like impacting your day to day because there's people from all over with English background?
Yeah, I feel like it's one of those things for every single day life. I feel like it's not that bad because I find like the city, like especially downtown Montreal, everyone speaks both languages, so you can really get by. I find the hardest part sometimes as like an athlete is like post game when you're on the field and there's fans on the field. Like younger kids necessarily don't have as wide of a vocabulary, so they speak predominantly French or predominantly English. So sometimes you feel kind of guilty as an athlete when I can do introductions and I can do very base French, but
Right.
anytime they try to go beyond that, like a lot of times I have no idea what they're saying, and I got to kind of rely on the parents to fill in the gap there. So that's kind of
For
where
the
I noticed
sign
the gap.
language.
But as far as getting food and stuff, it's not too bad around downtown and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay, that's epic. That's sweet. So
yeah,
to flash back a little bit, because I do like to hear the background, the sort of behind the scenes stories before all of the success happened. So tell us a little bit like where you're born and raised, what a typical like day in the life of 13-year-old you kind of looked like, what you were doing, what your hobbies were, family, and was there a good support system there for you to pursue the football thing, just all that stuff, because I find that listeners really migrate to stories where they can kind of either relate to or just didn't expect.
yeah.
And the more I interview guests, the more I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of people that have come out the other side of things where you would have never expected the background that they had. So that's kind of my favorite part, selfishly, if you can dive into a little bit about that. And then, yeah, we'll just ask questions as they come up.
No, yeah, it's kind of cool. Like, and I look back in hindsight, like when I was growing up, like I come from like my parents' side, like my both my mom and my dad, they worked in oil field their entire lives, and that's what my mom's side of their family did since they were growing up. And then my dad's side were farmers, and so for me, it was like one of those things when I was growing up. I love sports, and I was always a really big kid, and I was kind of just trying to find like my true fit, I would say, because I started out playing soccer. I love playing soccer. Was I always thought like I was playing soccer when I was little. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a professional soccer player.
This is the one.
Here I was like this like chubby kid who wasn't very fast, wasn't very good, but I loved playing it. And then I found my love for hockey. I was like, hockey's like the stuff. I knew every single player in the NHL. I was like, I'm gonna be a goalie one day, but I couldn't skate to save my life. Like my parents put me in skating lessons, and I was happy if I didn't fall like 5 or 6 times like the whole time.
Were your parents like influencing you to try all these sports, or were you more the one that was like, put me in this, put me in this?
I would say like they encouraged me to play sports, but they never really like directed me to play the sport. Like I always just kind of like found something I wanted to try, and they would support me in it. But it's funny. Like I talked to them in hindsight, they were like, "Well, we were so busy back then. Like there was no way you were ever going to be playing hockey because in the oil field, like your busy time is the winter." When
Right.
hockey's going on. So they were like, in hindsight, it was actually a really good thing you weren't good at hockey because you probably wouldn't have been able to play. Where
So just pause because I'm curious now with the oil field, were they working up north and away from you, or did they have jobs that allowed them to be more local to you?
Well, so my dad was gone a ton. So we do heavy oil field hauling. So he's got like, they call them like big winch tractor trucks. So the ones that load on like big buildings, haul them out to rig sites, drop them off there. So my dad was gone quite a bit when I was like younger. And then my mom worked in the office for my grandpa for the company there. So she was around, but she used to be the one who had to go get us from school. And then after school, we'd go hang at the office the whole day and just hang out there. And my cousins were there because they also their parents worked there. So yeah, it
That's
was
cool. Big
yeah super,
family, yeah,
which was
oriented.
good for us. We got to spend a lot of time together. We had a lot of fun just kind of hanging out there. So
Awesome. So then that's what you at 13, 12 years old, or was this way younger?
yeah, no, probably about there. Like I would say
Yeah.
it was kind of like that until about high school, and then it wasn't as much as my parents going up and like my dad really traveling up north, going to Fort McMurray or anything like that. It kind of started to slow down a little bit for them, not having to as much anymore. So that was kind of nice. But yeah, younger me, I just was trying out sports and trying to see what I guess. I always knew I wanted to play a sport and like really chase it. I was always passionate about it, even if I wasn't that good. And then I think it was 14 or 15. No, I wasn't that old. 10 years old. I was grade 5, I think, when my first year of football. My parents were like, you should try playing football.
Who was it? What team?
Spruce Grove Cougars, actually, out in Spruce Grove. They were like, yeah, you should try football. You're a big kid. And that was kind of the first sport they actually like influenced me to like try. So I went in there and I was like, you know what, I'm going to be a running back or a wide receiver. I was like, classic, but I see it to this day now on the opposite end, like being a coach. A lot of the time is
Mhm.
like I was like coach were like, oh, what position do you want to play? I'm like, oh, running back, receiver, and they're like, you're gonna go on the O line and D line. I'm like, I'm like, all right,
No kidding, hey? They're just
yeah,
like, oh, for sure, we're gonna put him in this one.
yeah. They already knew exactly where I was
Yeah.
going.
That's awesome. So before you continue, I'm just curious to know if at this stage in your life, like what was so important for you to become an athlete or a professional footballer or somebody that was pursuing sports? Like, was there somebody that you looked up to, or was it just purely because you loved sports and that came from sort of an organic influence?
Yeah, I would say it came from an organic experience of just like loving to compete, loving to be around people and having that. And I do a lot of like during my off season, I do a lot of school presentations, and one of the things I talk about is like when I was a younger kid, like grade 5, grade 6, around that age. I was bullied a ton for being like the big kid. You know how everyone goes through it, and kind of grateful for it in a sense. As crappy as it was when I was younger, like it kind of helped build me a little bit as a person. But I always found like I think I was so into sports because it was kind of like my escape from everything that was kind of happening in everyday life sometimes. Like, you'd
Hmm.
have a bad day at school or something would happen. Is like I got to go to like football and I got to, be around
Yeah.
my friends. I got to hit people and not
Yeah.
get in
Yeah.
trouble. It kept me out of trouble, which was good.
That might have had a little bit of to do with it, the
Yeah.
physical aspect. That's funny.
So I think that kind of fueled it a bit for sure.
Yeah, I feel like at least because I'm also born and raised Stony Plain, Alberta. The community around football, I feel like, and maybe this is because my dad was also involved, my brother was involved in it as well. Stony
Yeah.
Plain Bombers, like I just feel like the football community. I don't know why, but I watched Friday Night Lights and I was like, this kind of reminds me like
Yeah.
the OG, and it kind of reminded me of the community in Stony Spruce. Like I don't know why we had this bigger support for football than I feel like a lot of people knew of or know of.
Yeah.
And so, did you kind of see yourself become a part of that like community, that family, and then from there it just kind of like spiraled into your love and commitment to that sport, kind of like finding your niche and your passion?
Yeah, honestly, I think you kind of described it perfectly. Like, I've seen a lot of guys and been around a lot of guys who, come from like Edmonton, where they're playing for teams that have, pulling from 4,000 kids. And when they have trials for football teams, it's over 100 kids trying out for it. And it was like when we were in Spruce Grove, like from basically my first year of football, I had the same coaches. I played around the same guys all the way through high school, which, how many people really get to have that experience? So, I
Yeah.
got to play with a lot of my best friends the whole entire time. I was blessed with unbelievable coaching, especially for a smaller community like Spruce Grove, where a lot of times it can be hard to find people who are just working a full 9 to 5 job or whatever it is, and then volunteer their entire nights to come coach us. Like that's a hard thing to come by. But like we had unbelievable people. Like my best friend Mark Cordy, like his dad coached us the whole time growing up. My dad was always trying to be involved as much as he could. Like we had the same coaches growing up, which was super cool for us. And honestly, I look back at it like a lot of us Spruce Grove guys that went through the program, and in high school we were pulling from 3 different high schools, which is kind of unheard of. But like we had teams of 20 to 30 guys, which is not very many. So we were playing both ways, and going against teams that had teams of 60 guys.
Yeah.
And we were doing really well. But I think that's kind of like what made us so special, a little bit of a grit to us. Like you said, just having the support we had and the people who pushed us to get better. And I
Yeah.
definitely get that vibe of just like, I don't know, I fell in love with it. That's why, like, even when I come home for the off season, like, I've never had a desire to move away from Spruce Grove.
I
Because
think that
I
says
just,
so much, right? Like even when you do see somebody that goes away for work, contract, whatever it is, but they're just continuously coming back home
yeah,
whenever they can, that says so much. And I've noticed that about you and your journey. It's like whenever you're not needed in the cities that you're hired for, playing for, then you're back in Spruce Grove, which I admire that and I love it. Because I know not everyone has that sort of pull to come back
yeah.
home. So then when did the like I imagine that flame was ignited and sort of that seed was planted, if you will, when you were in that high school era. But then was there a spark? Was there a click? Was there something that just like skyrocketed you to be fueled to pursue this professionally? Or was it something that kind of just like you were continuously, showing up for your team and being the best one on the field, and it was just like the natural progression? What route did that look like for you?
Yeah. So I felt like right away, like even my first year of football, like I felt like I was naturally good at it. And you can kind of like, I feel like you always know as an athlete when you kind of like click into something. So I felt like it was a natural fit for me. So that was kind of like enough in its own to kind of get me going. But like my parents put me into all the camps at the U of A, anything there was. And I felt like for me, the biggest turning point in my career actually was like grade 8. I remember they had the summer games tryouts, basically like regional parts of Alberta where they try out and they go to play like in a tournament. And I remember it was like me and probably about, I would say, 14 Spruce Grove guys, maybe something like that total, trying out for this team. And I was in grade 8, like the younger group, like it was grade 8 and grade 9s trying out for it. And I remember being pretty much the only Spruce Grove kid who didn't make the team. And I remember showing up to school and like looking at the roster and not being the one who made it. And probably the most like gut wrenching feeling I've ever had is like athlete. You're just like, I just felt like a little sick almost.
Absolutely. Your stomach's like just in knots, and you're
Yeah.
probably like kind of not embarrassed, but like to
Yeah.
show face the next day. You know what I mean? Like you're no you get titled for these things, and then to not rank or to not,
You see
I,
people talking about it and, they're excited about it. And I'm like, frick. Like, I didn't
yeah.
even. And so I feel like for me, it was like I still remember today. I remember getting cut from that team, and I was like, honestly, to my best of my ability, I am going to do every single thing I can to never get cut from a team again because, like, I don't know. I'm one of those people like if I have a bad experience or something, I will do everything I can to never have that experience again because I
Interesting, because
it's
there's so
so
many people that
uncomfortable.
go the other way. Like I got cut, quit. I'm not doing this again.
Yeah,
That's not for me. Versus like the person that flips it on its face and goes, "Oh, that was an awful experience. How do I never have to feel that again and make sure I'm the best that I can be?"
yeah,
I wonder if like there's so many things that set, the difference between succeeding and failing or growth opportunities, if you
yeah,
will. But I feel like ones that really soar and do make it to that professional level have that sort of mindset. I really like I've noticed that it's just those tiny little mindset differences are the major differences that make you go from, community football to professional football. Like
yeah,
to narrow it down, may I be so bold to do that, but like I think that it is such a huge thing to say about why you were able to get to where you are today is because, like you just said, you've always been that type of human.
yeah.
At this time, was there other like academics or, somebody saying it's a family business, like it's time to start thinking about that? Was there anything else that was pulling you away from football, or was everyone just like, no, this is you, this is your journey, go pursue it?
Yeah, honestly, and I'm very blessed to actually like talk about that part of it. The nice thing about it is like my parents never pushed me to have to, and it's good and bad in some senses, but to worry about stuff that they knew I was passionate about football. So even when I got into high school, I was good at it, right? And like I knew I was good, but I was working hard to chase my dream of going to university. I talk about it all the time. Like, I'm probably like, I like to think of myself as a smart guy, but I hate school. Like, I'm just not a academically like pursuable person. Like, it just nothing about it really ever intrigued me. But I knew in order to go to university and to get to the CFL or NFL, whatever it was one day, I needed to have the grades to make sure I got into school. So I think my parents just always supported me in my dream for football because they seen I always took care of business. Like I got good grades in high school. I studied just enough to make sure I always had good enough grades to go to any university I wanted to. And I had those opportunities. I worked out. Like I always say to like, I think a lot of my success came from my younger days when I kind of like established my base for myself. Like even in high school, like I was the kid who I went to school. Right after that, I went to the gym where a group of us would always work out, and right from there we went to practice at night and didn't get home till 10 every day. And
Jeez.
that was just our life. And I don't know. For
Eat,
me,
sleep,
I loved
repeat.
it.
Yeah.
It kept
Yeah.
me super busy. It kept me disciplined, and it's still good work habits into me that I look at like a lot of kids I coach nowadays, and it's just like these kids think they got everything. Like they think they're better than they are. They don't think they have to work. They think they can just get by, and it kind of eats me alive because I'm like high school kids especially. Like that's your time to shine and really work and show what you're about. And I just don't see enough kids with that attitude of like I got to keep working and getting
Hungry
better
for
in
it.
order to earn it, right? But
I think that that is also like what you just said was the work you put in during those years, like even for myself too, the foundation that you create yourself so that in 10 years you already have that. It's not hard for you to like work at anymore because it's
Yeah.
just like second nature. I think that if you skip over those foundational years in sort of like grade 8 to graduation, like
Yeah.
that is huge and can't be overlooked. And so I do think about maybe for those that are curious, like do they have the talent? Do they have um the means and all of that stuff to pursue something if they're interested in it? Do you have any advice for somebody that's like kind of teeter tottering that line, tiptoeing that line of do I work my arse off right now, put in the hours, put in the time because I think it might be a slight chance that I could do it because I have that unique talent?
Yeah.
Or do I sort of cut my losses because I'm not too sure and pursue the education or pursue the whatever that's pulling me as well? Like, do you have it? Because I know that there's so many people that go through that. I went through that.
Yeah.
You just don't know, and nobody knows it. And it's nobody knows. It really nobody knows. Do you have
Yeah.
any
Yeah.
advice at least to speak for yourself?
I would say personally, like, and I've always been one of those people, like, when I try something or I want to do something, I always like, and like I said, a lot of it comes from my parents and the way they raised me and always told me was like, if you're gonna try something, like, how are you gonna know if you really truly love it or hate it if you don't give your all at it? And I think like I try and as I've gone a little bit older, I've tried to apply that to more of my life in the sense of you know even though it's not something I necessarily do every day, if I don't give my all to it, how am I know if I'm gonna enjoy it? So the way I look at it for like people, like if you kind of get to that point of like, do I cut my losses? Do I keep going? I'm like, you're gonna regret it so much more if you don't give yourself the opportunity to go as far as you can. Where if you just kind of like give up on it, like for me, I'd rather fail giving it my all than I would like just quitting kind of halfway and
That
being a little
safe,
bit more on the
that safe sort of,
cautious
yeah.
side of it. Yeah.
Me too.
So
I there's so many people that I know that are like absolutely not. I have no like appetite for risk. Like no, safe,
yeah.
secure. And I tip my hat off because I'm like, yeah, fair enough. You are where you are right now and you're all giddy and like but I literally could not lay my head down on my pillow at night being like, nah, I think there was a chance and I robbed myself of that chance.
Yeah.
I could not sleep a good sleep that night knowing that. And it's so funny because it's different for everyone. So then I do want to make sure we have time here, transitioning a little bit to speak about days in the life of the present. And because you said you entered 6 years ago into CFL.
Yeah, so it's been technically 7 years because we lost the season in 22.
Okay,
So technically, yeah, like I've played 6 full years, but it's been seven since I
right.
graduated university.
Okay, so then to me about. Did you go to the U of A? Okay, so you were with the Bears. What does the scouting process look like? Like, what's the banter on the team? Does everyone think that they're gonna, you know, place into the CFL? Like, what is that world like for people that like me have no idea?
Yeah, so I'll talk about like my experience from like what because it's changed. Like football's changed so much in the last like 10 years. It's kind of
Okay.
crazy. But like when I was coming out of high school, like I said, I did a ton of camps. I played for like Team Alberta in high school, Team Canada, and what I've really found was like I think I had like one of my first schools talk to me in grade 11, which was actually UBC. And I just remember as like a kid, like they just messaged me on Facebook Messenger, one of the coaches, and I remember like thinking it was the coolest thing in the world. Like I think I posted it on Instagram. Like I was
Yeah.
just so excited. And for me, like that was what fueled me. Like I love that feeling of like, finally seeing my work pay off and, starting to get noticed a little bit. So I feel like you kind of, the way I've always looked at like high school football is you kind of create your buzz for yourself in your grade 11 year.
Mm.
And that's where you kind of put yourself on the map a little bit, get schools to know you, and then stuff starts to really happen in your grade 12 year. Teams will offer you, you get to go on visits. So, like, my grade 12 year, it was a lot of fun for me. Like, I think I visited about 8 or 9 schools across the country,
Mm.
which was really cool. So, I used to remember going to high school and, asking the teachers if I could have the Friday off because I got to go to, Ottawa to see Carleton University from Friday to Sunday
Jeez.
and do that kind of stuff,
And
which
did they like put you up in the university? Like, how does that work when you get the invite to go tour?
yeah, so the way it worked was, yeah, they'd put you up for the weekend. Like, it depends, like, on the university. Like, some would put you up in a hotel, some would put you up on campus. And basically, what you would do is you'd go down there, you'd work out with the team. They'd want to see what you look like working out. You'd watch maybe some of their practices, depending on the time of the year. They do campus tours, academic tours, where they like basically consult you on what you want to do academically. And like you said, just kind of get a vibe for you. Like a lot of times I went to universities and I would go with some of their pro athletes, like guys who attended the university were pros, which was crazy. Like in Montreal, my first year in 23, I went out there. There was a guy named Landon Rice who was actually, he was playing for the Hamilton Tiger Cats at the time, but took me out for breakfast one morning when I was a high school kid. And
And
then
is this him just going out of his way to be like, "Hey, let me like show you around," kind of thing?
So usually what it is the coaches will reach out to the guys and then like ask them to. So he took me out for breakfast, and then I always kind of remember that because it was cool for a high school kid. And then when I joined the Alouettes in 23, like I remember first day of camp, like there he is, the guy I went for breakfast when I was a high school kid.
That's so
And
cool.
I was like, hey Landon, like I don't know if you remember this at all, but you took me out for breakfast one time, and in when I was visiting the University of Manitoba, and he's like, yeah, I actually do. That's kind of crazy.
No
And
kidding, hey?
like
Like the
full circle.
wild full circle, exactly.
So
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's a cool experience. Basically, it's just they're trying to sell their program, trying to sell their coaches, trying to sell their players, and basically just trying to sell you on what's going to be best for you to develop at the next level. Whether it's are you more of an academic person who just wants to get a really good degree? Are you a guy who wants to pursue the pro level? Just finding the right fit for you was kind of basically what they're trying to do, right?
And is there somebody that represents you at all at this point, or is it you as an independent with your parents or whoever your support group is, kind of shopping around, kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much just independent, like you and your parents. And a lot of times the coaches would reach out through our high school coaches.
Okay.
But yeah, it's all kind of on your own.
Wow.
So they
Okay.
book you the flights. They'd be like, hey, do you want to come out this weekend? And be like, yeah, sure. And they'll book you the
Let me
flight.
check my
And
schedule. Grade 11, like let me just
it was so cool, honestly. Like, and I was one of those, like, I had, my heart was with the U of A. Like, I love being home. I love being around my community. But I was like, man, I'm a high school kid. Of course, I'm going to take as many trips as I can and just
for
experience
sure.
it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. So then once you did, because obviously you did go to the U of A, what program did you go into? What did you graduate with?
So I was in the Bachelor of Arts in Recreational Sports and Tourism. Honestly, never got my degree,
No.
which is kind of like one of my like my whole thought process. And my parents supported me on this 100%. Was I went to university, and honestly, wasn't much at the U of A that I was really passionate about. But they were like, okay, either my thought process was either I play professional football or I go to the oil field. So I was like,
Yeah.
I don't really need a degree.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out from there. In hindsight, looking back now, I would have loved to just get a degree to say I had one. I think it just would have been a cool accomplishment for myself. But you kind of live and learn from your mistakes, and
And
I think
that's
it's
the
a good
thing,
teaching
right?
point
Yeah.
for other people to, pass along. So that was kind of my thought process. And I look back and I was the kid,
Well,
skipped a
you're
couple
blind and you're
classes.
on, right? You're like, it's football. It's football or nothing for me. There's no room
Yeah.
for anything else. So then, how many years were you there for before you went to the CFL?
So I played 4 years there. So the way that the draft process works in the CFL is after your third year of eligibility, you go to basically kind of like an all-star game. It's called like the East-West game. Usually it's held out east actually, but basically it's your first time being in front of like CFL coaches, CFL agents, all that kind of stuff where you do like a combine, which is like your physical testing, and then you do like practices, and then you play in an all-star game essentially.
Whoa.
So that's kind of like your first taste into the CFL to kind of get noticed and stuff like that.
And
And
is this
then
in the summertime?
yes,
Yeah.
what is it? Trying to think here. It's usually no, it's yeah, actually it'd be in the spring, I think. Trying to think because I think it's coming up pretty quick actually. So I'm pretty sure it's in the spring, but yeah. So and then you go back to camp for your fourth year. You play through your fourth year, and then that's when you're finally draft eligible. And the
Okay.
CFL draft is I think in beginning of March. I think it is March or April.
Okay. Okay.
So after your fourth year, you're eligible. And the way it works is you can get drafted to a team. And if you haven't played 5 years of university, you can get drafted after your fourth year, go to camp, and they can then send you back to university for your fifth year, or they can keep you on their roster.
But you can't play like you're on the roster. Can you play that year or no? You're just on the roster for 1 year.
So if you get sent back to university for a fifth year, you can play with the university. So a lot of times they'll do that if they think guys would be like better off just getting a little bit more playing time and actually like playing. Because the thing is, you can go to like, say if they kept you on the CFL, they could keep you on the practice roster, and that means you're around like the CFL team the whole time, but you're not playing in games. You're just doing practices and
Mm,
kind of basically like doing every single thing the other guys are doing, but you're just not playing in the games at all. So a lot of
okay.
times they see it better for them to send guys back and have them like actually playing in games, developing a bit and just harnessing their skills a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of a crazy process actually.
So then what did the draft look like for you? Was it looking good? You were kind of eager to get drafted the year that you did, or was it up in the air? Like, what did that look like for you, for your family? Where were you?
Yeah. So yeah, one of the things I kind of miss about that. So before you get drafted, there's after your fourth university season, there's a combine which is held, which is kind of like I talked about that East West All Star game. It's kind of like almost a similar thing, but it's a combine where it's your final look right before the draft. There's regional ones and then there's a national one. So the regional ones are guys that are like kind of bubble guys a little bit, and then your national ones are like who they think are more high level prospects to look at. So me and a couple of my buddies, we got invited to the national combine, which was held in Winnipeg that year. So same thing. I think it's a 3-day weekend. Now it's 5 days. It's got it bumped up to be quite a bit bigger. But you go down there, same thing. You do your physical testing, and then you do interviews at nighttime with teams. So you'll
Mm,
go in, and it basically like 15-minute cycles where you'll be sitting in a room with all the guys there, and they'll be like,
speed date.
okay, I got a schedule with meeting with Hamilton at 6:30, Edmonton at 7, Montreal at 7:30, and you just kind of pop in, pop out, and they kind of ask you questions, grill you a little bit, try and see what your character is like, and then you do one day of field work where you're basically processing your skills. So yeah, that was kind of a big thing for me. I had a very like successful university career, I would say. Like I was 3-time Canada West All Star for like the Western Conference, and then my last year I was first team All Canadian, so best at my
Yeah, not
position.
bad.
Yeah,
Not bad.
but I had the big knock on me was like I remember going into all those meetings and like it's crazy because still to this day I'm the shortest offensive lineman there is in the CFL, which is wild to me. Like I'm 6'1".
What?
I'm not really
That's
that
what?
small. But I
Yeah.
remember going into meetings and every single team, we like you. You look pretty good on tape. You're a little bit shorter. You're a little bit smaller. Like, how are you going to be able to handle like the length of some of the CFL players, the speed, and all that kind of stuff? And I'm like, frick, like I couldn't have done any more in university to help set myself up. And here I'm
But it
like,
still comes down to this like
it does,
thing
yeah.
that I've been born with. Like,
And at that point, going into the combine, that was when you finally hire an agent who's going to represent you and deal with the teams. And I remember going after the combine, and he was telling me, he's like, "Man, you did a really good job, and now we just gotta like hopefully get our opportunity here." And I'm like, frick, like I had a good career, but I still a chance I could go and draft in the CFL. And
yeah, yeah.
there's
And
eight
that's a
rounds in the
feeling
CFL.
like I feel like that's a feeling only time allows you to see come to fruition. So like you're that anticipation, sort of that waiting game. I can't imagine what that feeling was like. When you first got that call, what like was it out of the blue? Were you doing something random or what did that look like?
So draft day, the way it works is it has a designated draft time, and the way it is for the CFO draft is the first 2 rounds are held on TV on TSN. So they'll
Okay.
actually have it like NFL style where the put in the card, the commissioner will read the picks. And I kind of knew I wasn't going to go in the first 2 rounds, like just based off like the feedback I had and my size a little bit. So I remember watching it, and like I went into the draft like processing like where I kind of fit along the offensive linemen who were there, and kind of where I fit. And I remember like rounds were going by, and it was like third, fourth round, and so all of a sudden I see like some guys getting drafted ahead of me that I'm like had no business whatsoever, in my opinion, being drafted before me. But these guys were, 6'6", 6'7", and
Right.
people fall in love with the eye test sometimes. And then I remember getting to I ended up getting drafted in the 5th round, and it was the 38th pick. Edmonton actually had the draft pick then at the 38th pick. And
Okay.
I was like, man, I'm gonna go to Edmonton. Like, there's no
Here we
way they're
go.
not gonna draft me here.
Here we go.
And here, pick goes up on, and at this point, it's just on the TV, and they just have basically like a live tracker of it. And Edmonton pick goes up, and it's this offensive lineman from the University of Calgary, and I couldn't believe it. I was like sick to my stomach. I was like, freaking out around the house because I had me, like Brianne, my parents, my sister, all there, and we were freaking out. Like we couldn't believe it. And then 39th pick, Calgary, who I actually thought was my worst interview at the combine. Like I was like, no way these guys are gonna draft me. All of a sudden, I see my name pop up on the board, and I'm like, I couldn't believe it. Frick, we're like crying at my house,
Especially
like we're
because you
all
weren't expecting that at all, kind of thing.
at all. We're like freaking out. Like it was like one of the most surreal moments. And then
Oh, I have
the
goosebumps like for you. That is insane.
and
Oh
like
my
the offensive
God.
line coach called me from Calgary and had a conversation. Like I don't know. It was like to me it was like one of the most special moments because it was like all right, like I got my foot in the door. It was a little late in the draft, but all you really need is an
You're
opportunity
in.
sometimes.
You're in.
So I'll never forget that to this day, and still one of the most special memories we've shared as a family. And it
Yeah,
was
I
just
can't
so cool,
imagine. And
so
those are
cool.
moments that are like, unless you put in that time, 10, 15 years prior to, unless you figured out all the stuff you needed to figure out, unless you learned all the lessons you needed to learn, like all of that stuff, that opportunity, I feel like just wouldn't have presented itself. And I think that is like, I think for me at least, just because I always try and relate somehow to stories that the guests share. For myself, there's so little of those like you're on the top of the mountain looking down kind of thing moments in a career that you choose that's either in sports or in entertainment or just something that's like
Yeah.
out of the ordinary.
Yep.
I feel like when those highlight moments happen, they're so fragile and they're so few and far between, but they just remind you of why the heck you do the things that you do. So I imagine that was sort of similar to that feeling that you had.
Absolutely. And I tell young guys to this day, like the biggest thing, and I'm sure you probably find the same for yourself or anyone who's, trying to advance in their jobs or anything they're kind of doing is like, I'm a big goal setter and like, I'm not a person who writes it down, but I always know I have a goal for myself and what the next goal is going to be. And like I said, for me, that was like just get drafted to the CFL. Like that in itself is going to be a life and accomplishment, and everything after that is going to be, cherry on the top. So like frick, it was unbelievable. Like coolest moments of my life,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah. And you'll hold on to that for the rest of your life for sure.
Yeah.
So then I want to know timing wise of the episode. I want to make sure we have time for um kind of what the season is for dummies like me that have very I love sports. I love watching them, but like when it comes to the season and how it all works and the logistics of it all, I'm very naive. So share with us like what a year looks like for you specifically in your case, even on the off season, what you're up to. Yeah, all of that stuff.
So yeah, that's actually a great question. I get that all the time from people, like what it looks like. 'Cause I don't think a lot of people really know, and I kind of get it. But basically, football season for us as a CFL player, everything usually kicks off in the middle of May. So usually around the middle of May, kind of varies every year. Like they've been pushing the season up a little bit earlier the last couple of years. But usually middle of May we report to camp. So they'll fly us out to camp. So in my case, we'll fly out to Montreal the 11th or something like that. And then we do when we get down there. Your first day is just getting settled in. They'll put you up, and then the second day we go and we do medical. Like we basically go to a hospital and they do medical testing just to get baselines for you on everything, check with doctors, that kind of stuff. And then you go out to wherever camp is held. So for us, it's out in Saint Jerome, which is about 40 minutes outside of Montreal. We get set up in a hotel there, and that's kind of our homestead for the next 3 weeks. And so that's kind of the extent of our training camp is 3 weeks long, where we're still out there. And for the first bit of camp, like the first week or so, we're doing double practices, 2-a-days. And we call them like power practice, where you basically do like a full 2 hour practice, take a 10-minute break, and then you do another hour and a half right after. And meetings all day. And I'm telling you, the worst part of being a professional is training camp. If you can get through training camp, the season's easy.
Yeah.
That's the way I always look at it. And I think a lot of guys do, because like I'm telling you, you wake up 6 in the morning and you're there at the facility until 9 at night. Like it's just like long days and very draining. But so we'll break camp, and within those 3 weeks we have 2 preseason games where we basically they'll rotate guys in and out throughout the game just to see where their talent level is at and assess them. And that's kind of how they develop the roster. And at that point, there's 3 roster cut downs during that time, and to eventually get to I think we're a 46-man roster, including 2 of those being healthy scratches. So they'll get to that point of the roster once camp is done after those 3 weeks. and then you're pretty much right into it. So we'll break camp on usually the Saturday or Sunday, and then we'll start our prep for our first week of games basically on like a Tuesday. Say if we, the way I always look at it, most football people look at it, we're not a Monday through
Are you
Friday schedule. We're a day one through day four. So say we play on a Saturday, um, we'll have a day four on Friday, which is our walkthrough day. We'll have a day three, which is a full practice. At a little bit lower tempo. We're not trying to kill each other because we're still like kind of getting our bodies ready for the game. Day two is our really a hard day, like where we compete. We have a lot of hitting, and then our day one is kind of we still practicing, but more of a mental day, getting to understand the game plan and all that kind of stuff. And then as far as like a
Mm.
typical day for us, we know we show up and for us we have O line meetings at 8:30, which is ran by myself because I'm the center. So I'm the guy who basically tells everyone what to do on the O line. Like I'm the guy, like kind of the center guy, so I always got to communicate with everyone. So I hold a meeting at 8:30, just kind of prep them what the game plan's going to be and walk through film. And then we do general meeting at 9 a.m. where the head coach addresses us. And then we break off. We do O line meetings with our O line coaches where they go over everything. And then we have meetings with the offense. And usually we're in meetings for about, I would say, 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours. And then after that, we go out to practice. We get ready. We go out to practice, come back, and we're usually done about, depends on the day, but usually around 1:30 to 3 p.m. around there. So it's not the longest day. And then kind of can do your
Yeah.
modalities and prep your body, go see the trainers, get a workout in, kind of do all that stuff. And then you're kind of free the rest of the day to do whatever you want, which is kind of nice. And then for
And do
yourself
you
for the games.
often like do you like go sightsee or anything like that? Or are you just so exhausted and so just like ready to veg that you kind of just like wind down, go back to the room or whatever and rest?
Kind of depends on it. It depends but depends on the person, honestly. Like for me personally, like I love hanging with the guys. Like it depends how hard the practice was. Like day two is a lot of us don't really want to do anything after our day two practice because they're so hard, and especially during summer when it's hot and humid out. Like I just want to go back to the apartment, hang in the AC. Yeah, but basically in our free time, like what we kind of like to do is based on the guy. Like a lot of times we love to go get food together as an O line. Like we're big boys, so we
Yeah.
love to eat. So
Yeah.
we'll go get food, do that kind of stuff, just hang out at the apartment, play video games. Like when my family's down or Brianne's down, like we end up doing a ton of walking. So usually during the summer, I'm really busy with them and keeping people busy and walking around, which is fine, but I kind of like to have my relaxation
Yeah.
time too. But I love when I get to have my people down too. So yeah, it kind of depends on the person, but we do definitely have a lot of time. And I say we play our game on a Saturday. Usually we always get at least 2 days off. So we'll have like, say, a Sunday, Monday off before we're back to work. So for me, I love to a lot of guys will go in the facility on those 2 days off. For me, I've found what works well for me is having like that mental break for the 2 days. Like I like to not go to the facility, not really besides watching film of the game, not really look at football too much. So then when I go back, I'm like kind of excited and
For
eager to
sure. I
be
think that's
back.
so important.
Yeah, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of people feel like they always have to go in. Like early on in my career, like I always felt like everyone made me feel so guilty for not wanting to go in for the facility for those 2 days. And I was just like, I hated it. I'm like, why am I like, I do
Yeah.
not want to, like, it's my day off. I want to just relax, get my body right. And now that I'm a little bit older, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, like, unless I have something I really need to take care of, like an injury or something like that, I'll take those 2 days for myself and, make sure I'm just mentally prepared and body's feeling good for the day when I do go back to work. But I think that kind of
That's
goes.
the thing. I feel like this is such a sidebar, but I feel like in life you do follow what your peers are doing. You do follow what people say needs to be done or how things should be done. And especially in sports or entertainment or whatever business, whatever it is, it's like you follow until you hit, and everyone hits that threshold differently, but it's like even just that specific example, it's like, well, you just went, well, for me, myself, and I, like, that's not how I need to refuel. That's not what's
Yeah.
going to be best for my game when I do need to be on the clock, on the field, doing my best. And I think that when you start to unlock those things and have the confidence to like be okay with like whatever chat comes from the rest of the team or whatever knocking you for choosing that, it's like if you can just get through that first sort of chunk of time where people are talking about it or whispering about it or whatever it is or judging you for it, and then you just like realize that that is exactly what you need to be doing.
Yeah.
Coming out the other end of that, I've done it myself. It's like it's so rewarding because people just start to go, oh, no, he doesn't come in for those 2 days. Like that's just he doesn't do it, but he needs those 2 days off, like kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's just like it is what it is.
Yeah. And it's
But
one
you
of
do
those
have to like have the confidence to do that.
yeah, and it's one of those things you just gotta I always tell people like sometimes I take recruits out for the University of Alberta and they'll ask me like what do you like to do or how do you prepare? I'm like I'm gonna tell you how I do it, but just because it works for me doesn't mean it works for you. Like I played with a ton of guys that need to go in there on those days. They need to get treatment all the time. Like I'm just not one of those guys. Like I found what worked to keep me healthy, what's keep me mentally refreshed. And it's just everyone's just gotta find what their niche is, right? And I always look at it too as like okay, so say I did take those 2 days off, and I, all of a sudden, like I'm doing that consistently, but I'm finding my play or my performance is kind of declining. All right, at that point, I'd reassess, and maybe I would go in on those 2 days. You know what I mean? I'm one of those people like I'm a process oriented person, so if it's not working for me, I'll readjust it and make sure it does work for me. But that's just kind of what's been my success system, so I kind of stick to it.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Because of time, I want to get into sort of what you do. I know that you are public speaking and sharing some motivational speaks with schools and for the public. Do you foresee that being something that you kind of continue to do post like CFL career? What do you see yourself doing once you come out the other end?
Yeah, like definitely, it's something I'm super passionate about, and like
Did you catch that?
yeah, I did. Yeah, I know. I seen it was reconnecting there. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. Yeah, definitely something I want to keep doing. It's one of those things like I think if the opportunity presented me to do it a lot, I absolutely would go with the path of that. Um, I'm one of those people I always like to try and keep busy and doing stuff. Like I coach a ton. That's what I'm probably the most passionate about. I love being on the coaching side of things and being able to like provide the knowledge to the kids that I've learned throughout the years. And I've seen the coaching that really works well for me and the coaching styles that I've really gelled with. And I think a lot of that's kind of made me who I am as a coach. Like all these kids, and there's something I've been working on since my last couple of years in CFL was like whenever I go to something, whether it's coaching at 8 in the morning or practice, like I always promise myself I'm gonna be the person to like bring the energy, bring the juice, bring the enthusiasm. Cause I feel like I see too much of it where people are just like and I always find that very contagious. So I remember like I coach every weekend for the selects program. It's a winter long program with the U of A. And I told these kids, I was like, all right, I'm gonna make a deal with you guys. Every single morning when we come in here, like I'm gonna always be happy. I'm always gonna say hi. I'm gonna bring the energy. But I was like, I need you guys to do it too. I was like, if I see you guys moping around, I'm gonna call you out on it. And so that's just something I always try and carry along for myself, and I've tried to work on whatever I'm kind of doing, even if I don't want. I'm one of those people. I can't be super serious about something. Like I don't thrive in a serious situation. Like I need to be loose. I need to be having fun, but know when the time to work is. And I tell these kids all the time. I'm like, I'm gonna come in 8 in the morning. I'm gonna get you guys hyped up. I'm gonna bring the energy, and I hold you to that. Like if you ever see me not, you can call me out on it. But I told you I'm gonna call you guys on it. So we run out on the field. I'm yelling at them, screaming at them, getting them hyped up, pushing them around a little bit, get them going. And I don't know, it's just something I think that a lot of people need to bring more to their lives. And I work on it myself because it's not an easy
I agree.
thing. But, I work for my dad quite a bit in his oil field stuff during the off season. And, I go out there and he's got a great group of people out there that work for him. And I always trying to go out there and I'm kind of the newbie. I'm kind of the green guy who really doesn't know what he's doing too much. But I always bring the energy and try and get those guys jacked up too. And, I think it's contagious sometimes.
I agree. I feel like the other day I was driving. This is such a sidebar, and it is on that same topic of like, even if you're feeling it or not, bringing that smile or bringing that energy, bringing that light in the room has such a ripple effect that is
Yeah.
so beyond our understanding. It's absolutely inconceivable. Like the other day, I was literally just driving into the gas station and I this is one thing that I absolutely despise about myself, but I naturally have like a down face. It takes a lot of energy for me to look like I am like just genuinely happy, even
Yeah.
though I am. And so some people are born with that, and some people are born the other way where they just have this genuinely happy face.
Yeah.
And I have so consistently tried to be aware of it and hold like just not even a bright, cheesy smile, but just something that doesn't make me look like I am hating life. And I was just driving into the gas station and it clicked because I saw this gentleman that was just pumping his gas, but had this natural, enthusiastic aura to him. And I literally was just like, that energy that you just bring around you in life changed my entire perspective. It was like 7 a.m. I was like, right. And from this point on today, that man has just inspired me to like bring a better energy in my personal space. And then hopefully that will also spread to somebody else as well. And then if you are in that team environment, whether it be business, sports, otherwise,
Yeah,
having that general positive, like energetic feeling and aura will have just such a it's infectious. That's the word I
it
was looking
is
for. It's
super
infectious and
infectious.
it does nothing but good for people around you. I love that. I actually really do. And I love that you brought that up because again, it's like the more I get reminded of that, the more I like move forward with my day having
Yeah,
that mindset, which is always what I need.
it takes a
So,
lot to like make sure you're doing it though. Like you need to be very self-aware because sometimes I find myself and I'm like just like almost zoned out and you could tell you're kind of like it looks like you're in a bad mood even though you're not and you're just like all right, like snap, I need to like come back to life a
well then
little bit.
I think like there's a lot to say about like nowadays we're so exposed to the risk of externalities affecting us. So like for instance, we at the drop of a dime, we can open up our phone and read a bad message. Never
Yeah,
used to be like that. It used to only be like I was saying, dial up. Like the drop of a dime, you can, scroll on your laptop and read a bad email. And it's just like the expo or turn on the radio and hear something bad about the news, like whatever it is. And I feel like for for I guess in general, if you can limit that exposure, I think is a key to being able to walk in your shoes in life with a better mindset because the
yeah,
more you're sort of like exposed to those risky things or those risky news breaks or whatever it is,
yeah.
like that, at least in my perspective, it does have that impact. Yeah, just something that I always like to keep in mind and have to be reminded to because it's a daily practice for sure.
I think everyone does.
Moving just into the last sort of like time of the episode, I want to spend just on like lighthearted random topics. I usually have a little bit of a fire round question. Sometimes I get sidebarred and distracted and ask more, but I'll try not to. So I I I know that you mentioned you're a foodie and some of the people on the team are as well. If there was a death row meal, what would be the last meal you had on Earth?
Death row meal, ooh, I like that's a good question. Death meal would be I think I would go Popeye's chicken with Raisin Cane sauce, 1 liter of chocolate milk, a lemon meringue pie, and probably a donair with a ton of sweet and tzatziki sauce on it, and a pound of chicken wings.
That's hilarious. Do you have your meals planned for your wedding yet? I know that that's on the horizon. Do you have the menu out for your wedding, or has that not been
It's in
figured out?
development right now, so we're working on it, but trying to get a little creative on the midnight snack. Hopefully, we can get something good going. I love food, so I'm like, and I'm one of those people that I can
That's
honestly, I
awesome.
always try everything, so I always think everything tastes good.
Yeah. If there was any other sort of career outside of what you do, what would be sort of on the bucket list of things?
Yeah, like outside of it, like it's super like because it's close to what I do. But like I said, if my dream would be to be a head coach of a university or something like that at college. I don't know if necessarily I'd want to coach in the pro level, like just being around it. But honestly, the university level is kind of where I find my love for coaching a little bit. I think that's something I'd really want to pursue one day. But I just think coaching would be really fun. I love motivational speaking. Like I said, I think that's something that, like I'll always have a passion for. And honestly, just anything where I get to, connect and talk to people, that's kind of
Share.
my thing. Honestly, like I don't really have nothing outside of like the sport where I'm like, I really want to do that. But anywhere I can like talk to people and be around people, communicate, like that's kind of, where I find my niche a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. And I love hearing when people are good at it, that that's something that they want to do because I think that the more people that are good at what they do it is just it makes for a better world. I truly do think that.
It takes a lot of time and development to do
Is
it.
there some? Yeah, that's true. Dedication.
Yeah.
Is there something that is sort of catching your eye right now, like a random hobby, a pastime, anything that's like just odd? Like it could be honestly pottery, it could be reading, like anything that's like so random, so out there that you just have picked up in the last year or two.
My weirdest thing is I don't know if it's crazy or what, but I started building a home gym in 2019 or something like right before COVID. I don't know what it is, but I love gym equipment. I love building my home gym. Like it's literally like I'll like tour Facebook Marketplace for hours trying to find good deals on stuff. I don't know what it is. It's a weird little niche I have, but I love gym equipment. I love going out and buying it, making deals with people. Like that's just something I don't know I like doing.
That's funny. You're an athlete through and through.
Yeah.
I have this. Well, if you, there could be any superpower on the planet, it could be whatever, time travel and being invisible. I know that there's like actual words for these things, but I can't come up with
Yeah,
them
yeah, yeah.
on the topic right now. What would be your superpower?
I think it would be I'm kind of torn between like being able to teleport and being invisible, honestly. Teleport because I feel like you can travel anywhere and just be anywhere in a heartbeat, which I think would be unbelievable. And then invisibility, I think would just be cool because you kind of get to be that like fly on the wall for situations. You know what I mean? When you always kind of want to know what's going on, you can be that person.
In some of those rooms where the major decisions are being made, I'm like, how I want to know how that
Yeah,
went
what's
down.
being said? It'd be
Yeah,
kind of cool. Or think about it like you could sneak into if you're trying to go somewhere that's exclusive, go invisible, get in
it's
there,
so
and then you're in
true.
there.
Oh
So
man, that's funny. Is there a place on Earth that you would live outside of being home? I know you're a homebody, but anywhere on the planet that you would like to live?
where I honestly probably I think some places in the U.S. like Brienne, like my fiance, she wants to move to the states so bad. I have a tough time because I'm a big homebody and I love being here. But if I had to choose, like my favorite places I've ever been to, or like I'd love to live in like Scottsdale, Arizona. Probably one of my favorite places of all time. And then also one of my favorite places, the Key West. I could definitely live there. Like just a different lifestyle.
It
Totally
really
what I
is.
love to do. So I would say Key West or probably Scottsdale in Arizona.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, last one. If there was a trait, a personality trait, that you could sort of like cast a spell on the entire planet to have, what would that be?
I would just say that's a good one actually. I would say people like I always look at it as like the old school way of doing anything. I wish people would be a little bit more considerate of others, to be honest with you. I feel like we've gone so personally driven that nowadays there's no,
Mhm.
belief system or handshake system anymore. Like, you talk to your parents and like my parents, like everything used to be just by word of mouth and people like lived up to that word. Now I feel like everyone looks out for itself. So it's a lot of people I just wish there would be a little bit more consideration in the world, a little bit more trust and a little bit more, I don't know, just a little bit more
I,
driven for other people.
I haven't gotten that one, but I couldn't agree more with you. I feel like you bring that and what we were talking about before, like you bring such this positive energy, whether it's like what you feel exactly at that time or if it's something that you're trying to like remind yourself to have. You've always brought it every time I've been able to be in the room and chat with you, so I appreciate that energy. It always lifts people up around you. I'm excited to see this next year ahead with you in Montreal and to see what's coming in the next couple years. You are just such a good idol for so many young athletes and people, especially in our community. So thank you again for sharing everything that you do with our community, being a public speaker and representing yourself well in the field. If there's any like sort of links or handles or anything like that that people can find you on, what would that be?
Yeah. So pretty much all my social medias are the real JLaw55. So you can find me on anything, and I tell kids I coach all the time. Like I'm one of those people. I'm probably the most easily accessible people there is on this planet. So I tell my kids all the time, like if you ever got any questions, as stupid or simple or anything as it could be, just please message me, and I'll always like try and help people. Like I said, I beyond blessed with where I am today, and I'd be a damn fool if I didn't try and give back to the people below me because I looked up to the guys that were in my situation. So, anyone who ever wants to know anything or reach out, please find me on my social medias and reach out to me.
Well, I'll add them to the show notes and everything like that. So, Justin, thank you so much again for your time. I hope you nothing but the best with the coming months before that training camp. It's coming around the corner.
Yeah,
But I'm excited to watch you in Montreal. So, all the best to you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. All right, cheers.
Thank
That's it. That's all. Another episode of Briggs and Co., where we leave average for Joe, is wrapped. If you liked the episode, share it with the friends, share it on the socials, send me a message, Instagram, Briggs _and _co _, or send me an email, admin@briggsandco.ca. Again, friends, the only way that I can grow this show and bring on these amazing guests is through your support. So please, please give it some love, send it to friends, share it on highlights, on feeds, you know. Please take extra care of yourselves and your loved ones. Spread a little love and joy. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day.